There's something to be learned by Rambo 4. When in doubt, more blood. So Rambo tells the story of John Rambo living out his days in Thailand when he suddenly has to rescue American missionaries from the war zone of Burma. Alright guys, welcome to the last Rambo review before Rambo Last Blood this week. Just 2 more days and I get to find out how the Rambo story possibly ends. So excited. And as with all of these Rambo reviews thus far, I am doing this in conjunction, in partnership with my buddy Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About. So his review is dropping the same exact second that mine is. So if you haven't already seen his review and possibly came from that review, welcome by the way, please check out this review and then go over to his channel and check out his. Now, like I said in the previous movies, Sean is much more of that nostalgia fan. He watched all of the Rambo movies growing up, where I pretty much just watched First Blood. But with this one, unlike 2 and 3, I did watch this one pretty heavily ever since it was released in 2008. So you might get similar views with this one from me and Sean, depending on how he responds to the violence. I'm curious to see, because he likes the blood like I do. Don't let him fool you. He likes the violence. But now we are at Rambo, or Rambo 4, or John Rambo if you look at the title of the movie. It's just titled Rambo if you buy the Blu-ray or the DVD in America, so it's just one of those movies. Multiple titles. Anyway, this is the Rambo movie that, for all intents and purposes, kind of relaunched my interest in the Rambo franchise back when it came out. Like I've told you in all of these reviews, I grew up watching First Blood, always loved that movie, never watched 2 or 3 until I was 18 or 19 years old, and that was when this movie came out. This came out, I watched it, I was in such a Rambo kick after walking out of the theater that I went back and I revisited First Blood and finally watched 2 and 3. So now that storyline comes full circle, the one you've been hearing me talk about. Rambo is an interesting installment in this franchise. So it's 2008, Stallone just made a big comeback, a big surprising out of nowhere comeback with Rocky Balboa just a year or 2 before that. For a while before that movie even came out, he was basically non-existent in Hollywood. He would show up in a few movies here and there, but he was nowhere near the presence that he was in the 80s and the early 90s. So Rambo was like his 1-2 punch as far as his comeback. He came back with his biggest character, Rocky, and then he took one more attempt at his second biggest character, in my opinion, Rambo. He stepped into the director's chair and nobody knew what to expect. Is this going to be more grounded like First Blood? Is this going to be a little bit more hokey action, superhero sense that the second one and the third one is? Is it going to be something totally different? Nobody knew. You walk into Rambo and holy shit, what a movie. Kicking it right off with the positives, I will say that this movie is a very, very welcome return for me, especially to the John Rambo that I know and love from First Blood. You get to John Rambo and the place that he is in his life in Rambo, and he's very much the character that he was in First Blood. He's kind of stone-faced, he's not a whole lot of emotion, doesn't speak a whole lot. He's very secluded both physically and mentally, and he just feels like this broken, beaten guy that just kind of wants to live out his life and kind of run the clock out to a certain degree. You find him, he's in Thailand, he's helping people catch snakes.
What I'm asking is that we compensate you for a few hours of your time that will help change people's lives.
Are you bringing in any weapons?
Of course not.
You're not changing anything.
He's doing some blacksmith work. The dude is just living life without any kind of goals, any kind of ambition. He's just existing. And it's the same type of way that he was whenever you meet him at the beginning of First Blood, where he's no longer at war. He doesn't really know what his purpose is. He doesn't know how he fits into this non-Vietnam world that he's in, how to fit back into America, how to fit back into society. And you feel like this is Rambo after years of trying to fit back in and finally just accepting that he never will. And like you've heard me say many times in my reviews of First Blood 2 and Rambo 3, despite really enjoying the more action-centric, a little bit more fun aspect that they go for in those 2 movies, I really latch onto the version of the character and the interpretation of the character that we got in First Blood, and it was such an exciting thing to see that he kind of went back to that direction for this 4th film. Oh, but make no mistake, if you like action, if you like gunplay, if you like violence, This is not only the most bloody, gory, violent film in this franchise by a landslide, I'm having a very hard time thinking of a more violent, bloody, gory action film that I've ever seen in my life. This might hold the crown. When you get into that final act and you have Rambo and you have these mercenaries out there trying to take on these Burmese soldiers, these people that have been torturing villages and throwing babies into fires and shooting women and children, all this crazy stuff, which I'm gonna get a little bit more into. When you finally see the guns get pointed at them and Rambo's on this gigantic machine gun and the mercenaries are out there with knives and their own AK-47s and everything, and you just see people get laid to waste for like a good 15 to 20-minute stretch, bodies exploding, heads exploding, guts flying everywhere, arms, legs flying off. It's your jaw's on the floor. You're like, holy shit, where did that come from? And with the way that Stallone chooses to characterize the villains in this film, you totally latch into this sequence. Whether you're squeamish or not, you want the most violent, painful carnage to be bestowed upon these people because of how scumbag they are portrayed through the entire film leading up to this final act. And that's another thing that I will say is a positive, is that they do a great job at really characterizing these people as villains. There's not really a standout character as far as the villains go. There's not like a main henchman or a main villain that has speaking lines where you're like, he's memorable for that, or any kind of a character-driven enemy. They're basically just cannon fodder. They're doing all these evil things as a collective, and at the end, they just become bodies to explode into red paste. And for what this movie's going for, that is perfect. And they don't hold back at really characterizing how villainous these people are. Like I've already mentioned, you actually see children being ripped from their mother's arms and thrown into fire pits. You see innocent people being gunned down. You see groups of people being forced to run across a minefield as like a sick form of enjoyment to see who steps on a landmine, and the ones that refuse just get gunned down. You see mortars being just dropped into villages of women and children. Like, these people are fucked up, and this movie is relentless at characterizing them that way. And I also like the storyline that they kind of went with as far as the motivation and how Rambo gets himself into this situation with the character played by Julie Benz, where it's this group of American mercenaries. They want to go into Burma to help these villagers that are being oppressed, that are being murdered and tortured and scared to death. And it's a cause you can get behind, but Rambo's like, you're not changing anything. Are you bringing weapons? You're not changing anything. I'm not taking you there to die. And then his kind of being charmed by this woman played by Julie Benz reminds me a lot of that relationship that he had with the woman in First Blood Part 2. She even gives him like a necklace at some point, which kind of calls back to that scene. I thought that was a nice little touch, but you could see why the charm of this woman and just this innocence of her goal and what she wants to do, and like this whole speech that she gives about what you live for, that kind of touches Rambo a little bit, because he's been living for nothing, and he's inspired a bit and kind of impressed with somebody that would be that selfless to go into a war zone that she knows is going to be a horrible place to go, just for the small chance that she can do some good. I liked that kind of relationship that they had, and I like that as a motivation to change Rambo's mind, to get them to Burma, and then eventually, when shit hits the fan, give him motivation to go there and fuck people up. And I think that Stallone does a great job at directing the tension in this movie too. There's not a whole lot of tension necessarily in a lot of the Rambo movies. A lot of it is more like enjoyable action, not necessarily edge of your seat action. There's quite a few sequences in here where you really feel like people are in peril. There's scenes where like Rambo's dropped a claymore mine and he's set this little trap and he's running away and it's attached to this like A-bomb looking thing, and you know he's trying to haul ass before this nuclear explosion goes off. There's scenes where you don't know where Rambo is and you see the mercenaries start to get beaten and tortured, and then you can see that scene where he just kind of like stands up and he's got his machete, like stuff like that. He does a really good job at giving this movie a very unique flavor. And Stallone is one of those guys as a writer and as a director where he knows, and unequivocally, he knows what his fans want. Anytime you look at a movie that has been created by Sylvester Stallone, where he is the main creative force driving where this movie goes, it is always a fan service type film. Some of the biggest fan favorites in the Rocky franchise, written, directed by Sylvester Stallone. You look at this movie, directed by Sylvester Stallone. You look at movies like The Expendables that are just total fan service to 80s, 90s action films. Fan service. The dude knows what his fans want, and he delivers that very well with Rambo. I love the setting in this movie too. I said it a lot in Rambo Part 2, where this jungle setting, this jungle aesthetic really feeds this character of Rambo and what you see inside of him and what you want to see him kind of interact with. This is similar, but it's not nearly as bright and fun and colorful as it was in Rambo Part 2. This one is much darker, much grimier, much more kind of dour. Like, he films it in a way where this beautiful jungle, this beautiful landscape seems ugly. And that takes a lot of talent with the way that you point the camera and, you know, the lighting that you use in certain scenes, like whenever they have that boat ride at night where it should be this nice, relaxing boat ride, but he fills it with tension because of these pirates that are kind of lurking around. For all of the themes and all the tone that they go for in this, with everything just being dark and not a whole lot of hope, they really use the setting to amplify that. And finally, I will say I really enjoy how this movie wraps up. Back whenever this came out, you assume this would probably be the last Rambo movie because of the way that they end it. It totally brings his story full circle with him finally going back home to his father's ranch to see what's left, to see what has changed, to see if they're still alive, if he has any family there. Just that whole visual of him, like just, you know, jeans, army shirt, his little duffel bag, like just like when you saw him at the beginning of First Blood, just walking the earth basically all the way until he gets to his father's ranch and then walking up to the ranch. Perfect way to end this series. Now obviously we're getting another movie, so they're hopefully going to have a reason to break away from that ending and give us something that's even more satisfying as a closing to this series. But pretending for a second that Last Blood wasn't coming, if Rambo was the last Rambo movie we ever saw, great way to finish the story of John Rambo. Now moving on to the negatives. One of the big ones for me, which I didn't really experience a whole lot as a young kid watching this movie, but it certainly hit me a lot as an adult and a father and, you know, somebody whose emotions towards movies have changed quite a bit over the past, what, 10 something years. The violence in this movie, as far as how they portray the villains, like, you know, people being thrown into fires, kids being shot, kids being thrown into fires, people getting gutted and people getting thrown across minefields and all of that, that's just relentless in the first 30, 40 minutes of this film. It's a bit hard to watch now. It's a bit heavy. This is not exactly a Rambo film that you would throw in to have a good time. This doesn't have like that fun and adventure style of 2 and 3, or even just the classic appeal of First Blood where you can just throw it in at any random moment and enjoy it for what it is. You kind of would have to be in the mood for this fourth film because it's so extreme with the violence that it portrays that it is a little stomach churning when you're just sitting there and you're just experiencing the most vile shit that you've ever seen in an action film for half the film's runtime. It's a taxing experience. Second biggest issue I have with this film is that even though I do like the story and the motivations and the themes that come out of these American missionaries and why they want to go to Burma, they are extremely frustrating characters because, I'm sorry, they are fucking morons. And you look at Rambo and you're like, yeah, you guys are idiots. You're not going to Burma. It's a war zone. Are you out of your fucking mind? And the fact that they keep pressing him, especially Julie Benz's character, just keeps pressing him and pressing him and pressing him, and we just have to go there. And then they finally get there, and you know, because Rambo saved their life by killing a couple of pirates who were going to rape and murder them, they're like, oh, we're morally offended by you. Don't come back. We got our own way back.
What did you do? We came here to help stop the killing. Who are you to tell?
Who are you?
Let him go!
You would have raped her 50 times and cut your fucking heads off. Who are you? Who are any of you? Come back!
And as a viewer, you're just watching them and you're like, bitch, please, he could have let your ass just get shot and raped. Like, you really want to play that moral game? You put him in that situation. You put his life in danger with your fucking stubborn ass goals. And as far as a logic issue too, I've never quite understood why these Burmese soldiers lay waste to every single person in this village that these missionaries are working in and just slaughter everyone, men, women, children, no survivors. But they keep hostage every single one of these mercenaries that didn't get blown up by a mortar. I never quite understood that. Like, I can understand, like, they kind of set up the theme early on with these Burmese that they were kind of, they like to take white women hostage for, you know, pleasures later on. So I can understand if, like, Julie Benz was the survivor, they would take her and keep her hostage for something like that, as dark as that is. But there's multiple characters from these missionaries that just get thrown into a cage. And I've never quite understood the motivation there. There's not like a ransom. They don't call the American government saying, hey, we got some of your bitches, you need to come, you know, pay some money, or nothing like that. There's no motivation whatsoever to keep them alive other than the plot requires them to be alive. So that's always been one of those little screenplay humps that you have to get over when you watch this film. But all in all, guys, I really enjoyed this fourth installment, mostly because the character of John Rambo that I know and love is back in this one. The violence, as far as the revenge, as far as the final act, like Rambo and the mercenaries laying waste to these Burmese, is awesome. Like, total bloody, gory, carnage candy awesomeness for like the last 20 minutes straight. But there is a few logic issues, there is a few issues with the motivations of these characters that get Rambo into this situation, and it is a very taxing experience with the level and the duration of the violence towards all these innocent women and children that does make this movie something that you can't necessarily just throw on whenever. But as an action movie, as a Rambo movie, it's pretty awesome. So if you're a fan of this franchise, if you want the gore to be turned up, if you want the return of John Rambo, and you just want to see carnage candy at its bloody best, this is the Rambo installment for you. So check this thing out and go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Rambo? Is this your favorite in the series, your least favorite in the series? Did you enjoy the tone shift from Rambo 3 to this one? Did you prefer the tone in Rambo 2 and 3? Are you excited as I am for Last Blood, or do you feel like Rambo should have been the ending? Lay all of your thoughts on me down below in the comment section, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some social media links, check down below for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreadshirt just below that. That's my store with all of my merchandise, all my designs, so check that out as well. And my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. And be sure to check out Sean Chandler Talks About's review, because that is going to be down below as well. Click that link. Like that video, share that video, subscribe to that mofo's channel, and return later on this week for both of our reviews of Rambo Last Blood. So check all that out, guys, and if you want to check out some more of my videos, including all my previous Rambo reviews, you can check those out by clicking right over here.